Hello friends and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Deepa Robbins from DeeZinesByD, and today I have another Christmas card for you. So lately I've been using a lot of light and softer colors and color palettes in general for my Christmas cards, and this one is no different. I've chosen a bunch of peaches and greens to make this beautiful foliage card. Now, sometimes I find that when I do pick a color palette, they sometimes get they don't show up as nicely as I would like them to, and they don't look as good as they do when I first find the colors. So I find that the best foolproof way to make sure that your colors kind of pop is to put them onto a white background. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. The white background, what it does, it just creates a nice bit of contrast and helps you to place your colors and your color palette on your cards so that they really just stand out. So, like with most of my cards, I'm actually going to be making my own colored cardstock. If you have your own diverse set of colors you want to use of cardstock, go ahead and use it. But this is just easier for me because I can pick and choose the colors that I want and make my own specialty cardstock for myself. Now, one thing that I am going to mention is I made my cardstock colors and then I also let them dry overnight. This is very important when you're die cutting because if they're still wet, it's not going to be good when you're actually cutting through the paper. So these were the colors I chose. I used Altenew Pastel Sunrise, Canyon Clay, Olive, Hunter Green, and Mountain Pine inks. Now these are all from different color groups, and this is part of the reason why they help each other kind of pop up the page a little more with the white because there's more of a contrast. So now I have all of these little die products. I'm using Spellbinders Christmas Blooms, Sizzix Tim Holtz Funky Festive dies, and Altenew Layered Floral Elements dies. Now I love mixing and matching my die sets like this because it just helps you create more of a diverse product. Like all of these pieces of foliage I'm going to be using, and you can see even though they're from different lines, they completely work together and it just helps you create more of a variety, especially when you're making cards with a lot of foliage like this. Keep in mind that you could also do the same thing with flowers and other sets of products that are in the same theme. I find lately that it's all about kind of layering and building up your layers, and having all these different sets just really comes in handy, and they all work really well together. So my general process here was to basically die cut all of those little pieces, and then I just assembled the little pieces that needed a bit of assembly, which were mainly the little poinsettias, the little branches, and I think the bow had, like, I cut it out twice to kind of make a shadow for it. Now, to have a bit of variation in the whites that I was using, I also used in that last poinsettia the Sizzix Opulent Ivory Glitter cardstock, and the glitter cardstock also helps these cardstocks stand out on your white as well. Now for the sentiment, I chose to use the Spellbinders Essential Christmas Greetings plates. These are hot foil plates, and they just came out this year. I just got them, and I've basically been using them for everything because I think I mentioned in a previous video that they work perfectly as a nice focal point on the middle of your card. So for this, I actually used the Spellbinders blush foil, so not the rose gold, but the blush, because the blush matched a little bit better with those peachy colors that I picked, and it's just a little bit softer. I'm really going for soft looks this Christmas, and so this just, I mean, it worked perfectly. If you don't have the blush, the rose gold, it still works as well. There's really not a huge difference. Now, once I've got that good and foiled on my glimmer machine, I will just take that foil off, and you can see it foiled really well. It's pretty much stuck to the cardstock. And there's my beautiful sentiment on the white. Now you can see there's a little bit of overfoiling. No problem. I have this Couture Creations detailer tool. If you don't have this, a Tombow Mono Sand Eraser works just perfectly well. And it basically has this little spinning eraser that helps you get all these little pieces of foil off, and it gets rid of it completely. You're not going to see anything there afterwards. So if you're a little bit scared of foiling, don't be. There's always all these little tools to help you out if you do make little mistakes here and there. And I don't foil perfectly all the time. I honestly don't think there's anyone that foils perfectly all the time. We all just use all these little tricks just to help cover up the little mistakes and just, get by. So now I have this beautiful frame, which is from the Kaleidoscope card creator from Spellbinders. This is an older set. I actually didn't get this um, as a subscriber. I got it later on. So if you actually go and check out my blog on the left hand side, you'll see a link for past club kits. These are all, for the most part, available there, and you can go ahead and check those out and purchase whatever you want from the past. You don't have to be subscribed to get these products all the time. Now here's a little sneak peek. This is Pinkfresh Studio's Lush Vines hot foil plate. This is not out yet. It will be out in December, as I was told, and I was able to get my hands on this because I mentioned in a previous video it was part of their Create and Connect event, which happened a couple weekends ago. So I'm actually using this for a dry embossing effect. So what I did was I put it on one side of my paper because my paper is a bit larger. It's made for a 5 by 7 inch card. I put it through and then I put it on the other side and then put it through again. You can see there's a line on off center there. Don't worry about that. If you're one of those people who would like to make bigger cards but don't because your plates are made for A2 size cards, really don't be afraid. I always make bigger cards and I get issues like this, but they're always easy to cover up. So as you can see here, I'm putting that sentiment in the center. So that covers up most of it. And I just have the bits hanging off the edges, and those will get covered up with foliage and embellishments. And as you can see in the beginning, you don't even know that I did this. Now, once I've done all my die cutting and I've created my background, I've got my sentiment on there, the final step for the most part here is to put all of this together and just arrange all of that foliage around that center sentiment there. Now, I'm one of those people who I have my on and off days. So there are days I love doing my die cutting, and there are days I just find it to be a drag. So when I do find it to be a drag, what I do is I cut out everything ahead of time like I did here. And then I find the fun part is arranging everything and gluing everything down. And that just kind of brightens up my crafty process after I've done all that labor intensive die cutting. But don't get me wrong, it really wasn't that labor intensive. I just wasn't in the mood for it at the time, but I did want to put it together here. So it really didn't take me that long. And I think for the most part, I used my Sizzix Sidekick, which was just on my table. I didn't have to pull out my big shot, and it didn't really take me too long. Most of the time when I'm crafting, I just sit there, put on some Netflix on my iPad, and I don't even notice that the time just totally goes by so quickly. I mean, I know everyone does a bunch of different things when they craft. What do you guys do? You watch Netflix, Amazon Prime? I don't know. I actually need some new shows to watch lately. I've only been watching, I think I haven't watched Mom, so I've really been watching that lately. And I think I've pretty much caught up on many of the other shows, but I really try to keep my viewing when I'm crafting lighthearted for the most part so that it's easy for me to follow and that I'm not going to kind of ruin my mood while I'm crafting. So anyways, back to the card. So as you can see, these 3 tones of green actually work very well to just highlight the different pieces of foliage, and it just, that white stark background just helps all these little pieces pop off the card. Now this color theme is just, it's perfect. Like if I used a colored background, it would kind of get lost in it. So using this white is really nice for making those colors really pop. Another thing that I did here is I tried to like shape the flowers and the little pieces of foliage so they looked like they were a little bit more dimensional, and those will also kind of pop off the page a bit more as well. So now I'm basically done my front panel, and I'm gonna first, before I attach it, work on the inside of my card. So I'm heading over to my regularly used craft stash and using the Altany Blessing stamp set. I'm going to stamp out this sentiment with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and this just creates that nice main sentiment. And then I'll grab the Happy Holidays little piece and I'll stamp that out with Canyon Clay ink. So this was one of the colors we used on the front of the card. I basically will use the same colors on the inside, and this just carries my design from the front to the inside of the card. Now, as you can imagine, I didn't use all of that foliage that I had cut out on the front. So I have some left over, and that's why I always cut out some extra, because I know I will use them on the inside of my card. So I'm showing you that I had stamped that sentiment a little bit off center. You're probably wondering why it's a bit wonky. I did that on purpose because I am going to put a bit of that foliage there in the bottom left of the card. So just like I did on the front, I went ahead and added all that extra foliage there on the bottom left just to jazz up the inside a bit. Now, if you are watching this and you're wondering why my commentary doesn't really match properly with the video, it's because I'm having issues with my software, so please excuse that. I'm sorry about that. Now, I couldn't just leave the foliage by itself. I had to add a little bit of embellishment. So I have my Studio Katia silver foil confetti, and I'm just going to add a few pieces here just to create a little bit of sparkle. I find that these work perfectly on the inside of the card because they are nice and flat. I find if I have dimensional jewels, they tend to make a mark in the card when it's kind of put through the mail, so these seem to work. Now for the outside of the card, I used my rose gold and AB crystal lolly bead gems. These are nail art gems. You don't have to get these. There's a whole bunch of them online. Go ahead and type in nail art gem and find what you can and what you like, and I guarantee you, you will be satisfied. If you want something that you trust, I will put the link for the lolly beads in my blog post, and you can definitely go and check those out. So now that I've completed the front of the card, I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like here. As you can see, those beads are just completely shining in the light. There's no filter on this at all. This is exactly what it looks like, which is why I guarantee you'll like these nail art gems. So that's my final card for you guys. I hope that you were inspired to go ahead and find a color scheme you like and make that pop out with a white background like I've done here. You can just make it plain white, you could emboss it like I have, or you can use an embossing folder instead of a foil plate. So I hope that you like my video. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you like, and also hit the notification bell. That way you'll be able to see any future videos that I post. Go ahead and check out my blog. As I said, there's some links there of the products that I've used and past products, especially from Spellbinders. I hope that you find something that you've been inspired by here, and I hope to see you again next time. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you again. Bye.